in the matter of the state of Texas versus David Andrew Quinn Woolsey. Let the record reflect that Mr. Woolsey is in the courtroom in person. Mr. Woolsey, this is a compliance hearing, so we're going to go over some items with you. You do not need to worry about being taken into custody. We cannot do that, okay? You do not have an attorney present. That would violate your constitutional due process rights. But I am allowed to admonish you and to redirect you on your lack of compliance with your conditions of probation. And this is what this hearing is about. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, Mr. Woolsey, you were placed on probation on October the 24th of 2023, not that long ago, 6 months ago, for the offense of violating a bond or protective order alleged to have occurred on May 20th of 2023. And the state allowed you or offered you 12 months of deferred adjudication probation for that alleged offense. You requested that the court grant your request for probation, and the court did, with the understanding you were going to follow the court's orders and you were going to comply with the court's probation conditions as court ordered. I've been informed that you have not been complying as court ordered. I'm going to let Officer Martinez fill the court in, and then we're going to go over what you need to do next in order to comply and get into compliance with the court order. Officer Martinez, can you apprise the court of why we're here today on a compliance hearing?
Yes, Your Honor. The defendant has already had one MTR on this case. We withdrew, and he was placed on we amended for several different conditions. He has been reporting monthly. He did do a TAP evaluation in February. The results are pending. His most recent UA was positive for methamphetamine. He told his officer that he found methamphetamine on the floor of a porta potty and he couldn't help himself and he used it. He stated that he is glad that he got caught. Probation officer Wolf, I'm not sure. I asked him to prepare a court summary and it is not archived in CSS, so I don't know what his recommendation is, but he is here and he can speak on what he wants to do with the defendant.
Okay. And I'm going to let you speak in just a minute, Mr. Woolsey. You're going to get this. Tell me whatever you want for as long as you want. Unless you're on meth right now, I'm not going to let you go for 4, 5, 6 hours just talking nonstop. Do you understand me?
No, I'm not. Yeah.
Okay. Officer Wolf, what can you tell the court about your experience supervising Mr. Woolsey? And you're on mute, Mr. Wolf. You need to unmute yourself. And what your recommendations are and what you need to see from him to get into compliance. If you can unmute yourself, sir, then we could hear you. You want to try shutting it down, Officer Wolf, and then logging back on. Why don't you log out?
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Okay, Mr. Wolf, Officer Wolf.
All right.
What do you need to see from Mr. Woolsey? Has he been complying, and how do we get him into compliance?
I would say Mr. Woolsey, for the most part, has been compliant. He's had a few issues getting to meetings, but he has let me know that things were going on, and we rescheduled. The meth use, Your Honor, I'm pretty concerned about, because listening to his explanation and him saying he was over a year sober and he just couldn't resist the temptation to use meth. He saw the horrible porta potty. That I feel like that's pretty concerning. I would recommend maybe some inpatient rehab.
Okay. Anything else that you would ask that we do with Mr. Woolsey to get him into compliance? You're saying he needs a TAP evaluation? There was one scheduled.
He has had a TAP.
And what did that recommend?
Had a recent TAP evaluation.
What did that recommend?
I believe it was AA meetings, monthly for the duration of supervision, weekly UAs for the duration of supervision, and I want to say intensive outpatient as well.
All right. Okay.
Your Honor, we also had Terry talk with him about Reflejo Court. I don't know if that is something that Mr. Woolsey is interested in. I think he would benefit from that program because he has a lot of things going on in his life, a lot of barriers. I don't know if that's something that we could even do at this point, at this compliance hearing. But if an MTR was filed, in the future, if he continues to violate, that would be something that I would hope the probation officer and this court would consider. I
Well,
don't know if he is interested in that.
For him to qualify, the first obstacle is he a first-time arrestee or offender of family violence? Because if he has a family violence history, he's disqualified. He has to be a first-time arrestee, and he qualifies on the second prong. He has a substance abuse problem. Now, once we get past that initial screening, it goes to the district attorney's office and they review his file. And without their consent, he cannot participate in the program. So they would have to review his file and let us know if they think he's an appropriate candidate for Reflejo Court. And we're going to stop right there. Mr. Woolsey, I know you've been wanting to speak to us. So the floor and the mic is totally yours. What do you want to tell the court?
It was a weird moment. My girlfriend was just like, "Oh, you'll never see your daughter," because she was mad at me because I was watching the TV with her. It was me off of Princess Diaries or whatever she was watching, and the bikini scene came on, or the swimsuit scene, and I was just looking at the TV, and she got mad at me for it. But long story short is she kept yelling. I was like, "Fine, I just won't watch TV," and blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to agree. She just kept going and going. And then we ended up, I paid for the hotel room for 3 days, but she went back to her house and I went back to my house, and she kept going. And then she was like, "Oh, you'll never see your daughter." And then, I just kind of went.
So Mr. Woolsey, I want you, Mr. Woolsey, I need you to focus on your conditions of probation.
Now,
All right. What you're talking about is family court, family law court. That's not something I can resolve for you.
No, I understand. So about probation, he's honestly a good man. I think he's a good man. And I've done everything. I meant to tell you about this. I cannot sign up for the Ready to Work program. I live in Converse.
No, but you can sign up for Project Quest, and Project Quest is a statewide job program that any Texas resident qualifies for. So, Mr. Wolf, go ahead and adjust that Ready to Work to Project Quest.
Yes,
The Ready to Work is for folks that live within the city of San Antonio city limits. But Project Quest it's completely a blanket over the whole state of Texas. So let's get him signed up for Project Quest. Anything else, Mr. Woolsey?
I went to all my compadre classes, and the one time I missed probation, the next day I didn't know I had it, and the next day I called him and I was like, "Hey, when can I come in? I'm making an effort,
Well, they haven't filed the motion to revoke yet, and here's what you're going to have to do for the next 90 days. I'm going to ask them to amend and adjust your probation based on the information that was shared today. And I need you to know something, Mr. Woolsey. I have a long history of not only being a substance abuse counselor, but having my own battles with use in my 20s. And I now live with an addict who will be 21 years sober next month. And she's an expert on trauma and addiction. And this is what you're going to have to do if you don't want the department to file a motion to revoke your probation. Starting tonight, Mr. Wolf, he's to attend AA meetings or NA meetings, whatever's more appropriate for his drug of choice, 4 times a week. Not once a week, 4 times a week.
Yes,
And if meth is his drug of choice, he's going to be randomly tested 3 times a week because meth burns out of your body within 48 hours. So if he is using, we can't catch it at once a week UAs. We can catch it at 3 times a week UAs. We're going to keep that in place for 90 days and see how he does. And we'll come back for another review hearing. Now, at that time, I will review with Mr. Woolsey whether we need to adjust his meetings or his drug testing. I will say this to everyone. Methamphetamine addiction is not even resolved as being in sobriety off of it for 2 years. It was expected. that Mr. Woolsey relapsed within 2 years of his last use. And with meth, picking up some crank or some whatever off the floor of a bathroom is typical behavior for a meth user. So I'm not surprised about that behavior. He'll tell you he's probably done worse things to get meth or while using meth. It is a drug that is degrading. It is a drug that drives people to do the worst things to themselves and others around them when they're under the influence of that drug. It's not a journey or a life that I wish upon anyone, but very specifically today, not on Mr. Woolsey. Now, do you know what the number one factor to succeeding is, Mr. Woolsey, and staying sober and being compliant with your conditions? Do you know what that number one factor is?
Me doing it, not doing drugs. I mean, just staying sober.
Mr. Woolsey, you are much smarter than I ever anticipated. Yes, your desire, your willingness to stay sober, your drive to stay compliant is the number one factor in you succeeding. We've laid all our cards out for you on the table. We have told you today what will happen if you do not comply with your amended conditions. We're going to give you a 90-day window to show us that you can do this, and we will see you at another compliance hearing on June.
May I
In
ask you
June.
something?
Yes, sir.
Can we go to like 2 times randomly a week?
No, sir. It's going to be 3 times. When you start to
I
show,
want 6 days a week.
Your
well,
Honor, if I can say his UAs are
I work from
$11
7 a.m.
each.
to like
Mr. Woolsey,
6,
one
7 at
second.
night.
Mr. Woolsey,
Sorry.
1 second. His UAs are $11 each. That would be $33 a week. And I know that his employer has already threatened to fire him because of all his classes and his reporting to probation. I don't know. He hasn't provided proof of his employment, but I believe that he is employed. When we talked last time when the MTR was withdrawn, he talked to me about his job. I know he works in construction. They don't tolerate much missed work. I'm not trying to get you to change, but that's probably what he's trying to convey that he's concerned
I'll do
about.
randomly. Like he can just call me and I'll, the next day I'll come in and just take the test or something.
next day, you think I just fell
Well,
off
I
the
mean,
turnip
If
truck,
it's
Mr.
72
Woolsey?
hours, I
No,
can't just leave work.
no, sir.
I'm late.
You know
Okay.
what? Probation will do what they need to do. I've told you what you
Okay.
need to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you don't comply, probation's got the green
I'll
light to
comply,
file a
I'll
motion
comply.
to revoke. We'll
Okay.
see him
I'll
on
comply.
June,
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Obledo, June
Yes,
10th
sir.
for another compliant. He's either going to comply or he's not. And if he doesn't
No,
comply, Officer Wolf,
Sorry.
you can follow your protocols, and we will see Mr. Woolsey way before June.
Yes, ma'am.
Today,
Thank
he's
you, Your Honor.
excused. Everyone is excused today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
If you are new to my channel, please subscribe as I edit these cases and remove all of the mundane, boring, repetitive stuff. And I even remove the silences, so you get only the juicy bits, which I think are always the best bits. Are looking for another episode that has all the boring stuff cut out and gives you just the good stuff, then here a couple that may interest you. Enjoy